Today I'm here to give you an update on the incident at Zilmere yesterday afternoon. As a brief summary of what happened, about 5:30 yesterday afternoon, a member of the community contacted police to describe a melee and assaults going on in the vicinity of the O'Callaghan Park off Zilmere Road at Zilmere. Police attended in large numbers. When they arrived there was quite a disturbance underway. There was a large number of people of African heritage there. As a consequence of the investigation, we identified that a young African man, about 20 years of age, had died from stab wounds. Subsequently, about 10 people were hospitalised as a result of stab wounds and being struck with things like baseball bats. The investigation's still in its early stages. Most of the people involved in this aren't cooperating with us and providing us detailed information. What we do believe is that the people who were in the park and have been the victims of this attack were there and were set upon by those who've turned up, presumably for the purpose of the assault. It appears that those people were particularly targeted. The offenders appear to be people of African heritage, the victims appear to be people of African heritage. We have an investigations centre, Sierra Titanium, established at Boondall. We've brought officers in from across Brisbane region. We've got our homicide squad and our forensics and scientific people there, as well as our intelligence. I've been in communication with my colleagues in Ipswich District and across South Brisbane and North Brisbane. We're treating this as a very serious incident. I do hold some concerns that this attack yesterday may have been in retribution for an assault on the 8th of September at Redbank. That's unconfirmed at this stage, but certainly the indications are that that may be the case. That was an assault that's under investigation by Ipswich Police, and it involved a group of African people on a man. An African man who suffered significant injuries. As one of the detective sergeants said to me today as I was coming in here, my message is to people is help us do our job. We know, and I acknowledge many of the leaders in the African community have continued to be supportive and engaged with police, and certainly my experience is they are quite keen to be known as Australians of African heritage and are keen to participate in our community just like anyone else. Those that are involved in this appear to be outliers to the African community, and the advice I have is that they are not supported generally by the African community. In terms of this being something that we are concerned about in terms of a retribution for the behaviour yesterday, and self-evidently it causes me concern that there's a risk of retribution within this target group of this small number of African people, I would say to the friends and associates of those who know, there's no doubt people talk, they will know who's responsible for this. You have an opportunity to talk to your elders, to talk to police, and let us know who is responsible for this and stop more people being hurt in the community. Our Crime Stoppers number is 1800 333 000. That is a completely anonymous option, or police link 131 444. I can't stress enough how the police, we have a very significant operation underway now to try and address this offending and prevent any further offending. But we do need help from the community and those close to those who have committed this offence or these offences to help us identify the offenders and prevent any further escalation. I won't go into the specifics now, but suffice to say we are looking at a number of potential persons of interest and locations, and we will continue to collect scientific and other evidence that will assist us in identifying who's responsible for this offence. Any questions?
Why are you so convinced there might be more retribution?
I think some of the words spoken by some of the people last night when in police present has led them to be concerned that some within that small group won't cooperate with us and they will seek to solve that themselves.
Can you tell us about the events that happened at the hospital?
I don't have all the details there. I just know I was in the IC last night. My understanding is we had a number of police up there anyway in terms of interviewing people who were the victims. I understand that some family members and associates of some of the victims attended there and were very animated. There was some suggestion some of them were aggressive, and it took some effort to keep the peace. And I think I can only imagine, to be a member of the family of someone who was injured in this way, it's a horrific, unacceptable attack in our society. And I can only imagine that as a parent or a sibling that would cause angst in my mind if it was someone that I loved. But going off is not going to solve the problem. Retribution is not going to solve the problem. We've seen that in societies around the world where it becomes tit for tat. It doesn't end well for anyone. So there is two very clear parts to our activity at the moment. One is the investigation of what happened yesterday, and two is being incredibly proactive to try and identify if, and I stress the word if, there is going to be any further retaliation, and what can we do about that. In terms of the way police engage with members of the community, of all communities, where we see there's community tension, we engage with the particular members, irrespective of race or creed. Now, I know in Ipswich District there was a meeting already planned with members of the community in respect of the incident on the 8th of September. That's happening today sometime. In North Brisbane there's a regular meeting with people of the African community that will take place later this week. We will try and capitalise on those relationships. The challenge is that these people who appear to be responsible for this offence, or certainly in our persons of interest, are disconnected from their own community as well. So I think we need to have reasonable expectation on how much the elders and others can actually influence them. What happened last night was a serious criminal act, and that is how we're treating it.
And Tony, has the victim from the incident on the 8th made a formal complaint to police?
More than I can tell you whether he's actually cooperated with us, but we're certainly, the police out there are investigating that offence.
And do you believe he was involved in yesterday's incident?
My understanding was he was still in hospital last night, so I doubt it. Whether or not he had knowledge of it I don't know.
And some indication that there were other incidents in Inala and Annerley with police last night following this event. Can you comment?
Yes, there was an incident last night around, I believe it was the Annerley area, where a male was assaulted by people who were described as African, but I have not been given information that links it to this. That may well be a robbery rather than an incident involved in this. We have noticed generally in the last couple of months that our robberies have increased and crimes of violence have increased. Knives are becoming all too common in our crimes at the moment. We know that the price of drugs is up at the moment, and one of our working hypotheses is that this is motivating the offending behaviour. But obviously people who behave that way aren't very forthcoming with us as to why they're doing that.
Tony, people I've spoken to that were there last night have said that the group that was set upon were actually a family and not a gang as first initially thought. Are you able to confirm that?
Look, when we've talked about gangs before, I guess if we use the Oxford Dictionary, I'm not going to contest it with you. I've asked that question this morning specifically, you know, what's the gang status? The term gang isn't being used. I'm not sure that was all family there. That was a group of people who regularly associate in that area. It's a bit of an out-of-the-way area. What I have been told is that, because I've answered this question for you, but if it's a gang, I'm going to call it a gang. But what we saw last night was a group of people who have an association by what it appears to be friends and collective, that type of association. There's a geographic aspect and perhaps some schooling aspect to their association. Whether they have stretched into the part of being what policing, law enforcement would call a gang, I don't know, but that's an aspect that I'm looking at. That's certainly the prevention part that I'm interested in. But the information that was made available to me this morning was that those people who are the victims of this offence were going about their business in that space and they were set upon. That's the allegation as it stands at the moment.
Do you know how many people in total were involved in this matter?
No, I don't. There's been estimates of 20 plus, but whether that includes the victims and the offending group, I don't know. The information to hand suggests that the people who came and undertook the attack came in 3 motor vehicles. So I'd estimate somewhere in the 10 to 12 space. But I'm told that the scene was very confusing on the night. There were people moving about, lots of agitation, and in any normal circumstance where you have people injured, even a small number of people injured, the scenes are normally chaotic. With that many injured, I'm told it was quite chaotic.
Were the 9 that were injured, were they all victims that were originally in that group, or was it also some of the attackers?
At this stage, I believe they were all in that group, but we are working to confirm that.
And are police still at the hospital or various hospitals today?
I understand a number of these people have been released at the moment. I know our frontline people are making an assessment based on any risk, so I can't tell you exactly whether we've got people there at the moment. But our district duty officers have close contact with the hospitals, and I know from last night they were very quick to say, can we have some police up here just as a presence before anything escalated, and then when it escalated we put additional police in.
Any condition updates on the critically injured?
My understanding that last night one of the people, there was a concern that that person wouldn't survive. As of this morning I'm told they're expected to survive, but in terms of the specifics of those people, I don't know. I know some have been released from hospital, but some will have serious abdominal injuries that will take some time to heal.
Were any firearms seized at the scene?
No.
Just not?
The actual weapons, again, I don't want to go into too much specifics, but there was not a scene full of weapons. I suspect that the people involved in this have taken what they brought with them.
You described the groups as outliers for the African community.
Yep.
In that regard, how much hope do you have that the African community can liaise with these people and speak to them and try and correct what's going on?
Oh, I can only speak from experience. When we had, you might remember about 18 months ago around Christmas time, we had a series of really violent offences, and there was a small group of young African people who were, they were out of control, and the same issue was there, that they weren't really engaging. But what I found was the African leadership, the community as a whole. It's we use the term Africa so loosely, but it's a massive continent, and so there's all sorts of different cultures and communities there. But I came away with a sincerity from the leadership group there that they actually wanted to be part of society. Just ordinary folk, just like any one of us. So I took that as a really sincere. I think we've got an uphill battle here, and that's why I've said there's 2 parts to this from our point of view. Is we will put extra effort again into that community engagement. We will look to understand more about what might be driving some of this, and I'll certainly be briefing up through the chain and looking for our partners. The obvious things without speaking specifically about this group, but generally what you'll find is you'll find unemployment, you will find a whole series of things, young men, they've got nothing to do. It just becomes this cycle that almost becomes self-fulfilling. So one of my questions once we get through these next couple of days is help me understand what this potential group of people look like and where can we go to have some sort of influence. And I'm not naive. I think some people take a step into that criminal path, and we'd be naive to think that we could turn them very quickly, but we will look to do both the enforcement part but also that prevention part.
The September 8th incident, do police have any idea about a motive for that attack or assault?
If they do, I don't know what it is. I just got briefed on that last night because we reached out and once we sort of thought that there were people from that Red Bank area, they indicated there'd been that assault and they were investigating it.
What led police to zero in on that Red Bank area? Is that's where these attackers have come from?
There was, I think, some of the loose information last night about some names being bandied around, and once you do those checks, you start to get a bit of an idea of what is potential, and it's just inquisitive police work to follow up that way.
And is there any indication that in that same location at the Red Bank Plains there was another attack on the night?
I don't know. But we, as part of this investigation, are not only looking at what happened last night and looking at what's potential, but what exists. We did not have any information or intelligence that gave even a hint that last night was going to happen. That was, that's an out of the blue event at Zilmere like that.
Is it believed this was a pre-arranged meeting between the two groups, or a case of one group was set upon by another group?
We need to determine that, but the preliminary information would appear that the victims were set upon by the other group. But I do want to caveat that we need to verify that.
And I guess some of the neighbours in the area were saying that they've seen that same group of people around before. The
offending group or the victim group?
Okay.
Look, we know that is it's an excellent sporting. There's baseball and soccer and the PCYC. That's a massive space. We know some people will congregate there because it's a bit out of the way. It's off the main road. It's my understanding that some of those people that's a regular place for them to congregate. I know the officer in charge of Boondall has, because that's within their area, they patrol that very regularly, and that's part of the engagement with the broader community in Zilmere. But I want to be, people are allowed to gather, people are allowed to, and everyone wants their space a bit out of the way. So I'm not going to immediately jump to negative conclusions about those young people and young adults gathering in that place. It's true that we've had some disturbances there over the years, but we've policed that both through enforcement and also through engagement with the community.
Sorry, given that it's such a broad investigation in terms of like the location and to be looking across a few weeks time span, how confident are you that police are going to be able to find these people and charge them?
It's a challenge. We know at the moment putting people at that scene and then having evidence to prove beyond reasonable doubt is right at this moment. That is a big challenge for us. But I was in the briefing this morning. I was in the briefing last night. You have a couple of dozen people there who are committed to seeing this through, both for the justice for the victims last night, but also with an acute awareness of we want to get on top of this so it doesn't get worse.
Johnny, you touched on this before, describing people involved with Africa as quite broad. Is it known whether these people involved are from some part of Africa or whether they're just...
No, I don't know. My experience has been talking to, some time ago, to be very careful about that because it is such a diverse community. And I stress the fact that it's people of African appearance. So in the fullness of time, whether those people are from Africa, if they're the children of people of African heritage, or whether they're another nationality, but certainly at the moment all the evidence is pointing to the fact these are people of African heritage. Yeah.
Can I touch on another subject?
Yes.
Can you comment on the police presence outside the home of Jeanette Young?
I'm not across all the details of that. If I can answer in generic terms, we have police who will look at social tension within the community, just like this job, and where there is postings and information that gives us concern for the well-being of anyone, we will take action. Either they will come to us or we will go to them and give them advice on their safety. My understanding is police have engaged with the Cho and given her some advice. But the specifics of what strategies we've put in place, I don't want to go there. But it's a general policing response where you essentially have got the trolls increasing their angst there. Sorry, I'm not trying to be deliberately avoidant. One is I don't want to talk about strategy, but I'm not across the specifics of that job. I know that there's been issues. I know that we've looked at it. I know the QPS is engaged with the Cho. I mean, obviously, our deputy and others are dealing with the Cho every single day in terms of community safety. My understanding is we're satisfied that the Cho is safe and those general responses that we've put in place are satisfactory. Sorry.
Is there an investigation into death threats towards it?
That's more than I could tell you. I don't know.
And who approached who?
Again, that's more than I could tell. I got an indication this morning that you might ask me that question, so I've asked some really general for a really quick 5 minutes before I came here. I don't know. I would surmise, but is the relationship, because of what is going on with COVID, it is so dynamic, and we have so many police dedicated to that. I know our senior officers are engaged with health and the CHO on a regular basis. There's a daily communication there. So how that escalated or came to be discussed, I just don't know, I'm sorry.
So you can confirm that there has been liaison between
Yes,
police
yes.
and the Chief Health Officer?
Yes. Yeah.
You don't know that she asked for a presence outside her home?
No, I don't know. I don't know. And we, speaking in general terms, we will always assess things based on the risk or the general circumstances, and that changes from time to time. I know my general approach as the crime coordinator for Brisbane is, if I've got a sniff of something that gives me concern, I'll probably dial it up to be serious, stabilise, and then wind back. If that's how they dealt with this, I don't know. As I said, I'm not trying to avoid it, I just don't know.
Do you have a reaction to the fact that it's gone this far?
We live in challenging times, don't we? If you look what happens around the world, there's some angry people in the world. And, you know, we are hyper alert to community safety. That's what we're in the business of. It's not just locking people up for committing an offence. It's actually, I want to stop it happening. So our general approach is prevention and disruption and deterrence. So we will often act on something that, just in case there's a problem, we will go that step and then assess. And I can only surmise that that would be the case here. But I confess, I don't read all of the stuff on social media. I'm sure there'll be people posting stuff about this interview today that I don't want to read too, so I just avoid it. Folks, that's probably about all I can tell you in terms of that job. Sorry.
One more about kind of seeing Zilmere last night. The paramedics said there was victims spread across a large area. Can you sort of run us through, I guess, how far, how broad this scene was, and whether there were victims around a certain sort of sporting sort of clubhouse or...
I didn't go to the scene. My understanding was it was in and around near a baseball area. But from speaking to the police who were there, it was really dynamic, and people were moving and trying to identify who was a victim and who might have been an offender and who was a witness and who was just angry about what had happened. We brought a lot of extra police in just to quell that anxiety and that tension, and the ambulance were there. I can't tell you how many ambulances were there, but I'm told it was a lot. You know, this is a really abnormal crime for Brisbane. This is, you know, we don't have this type of mass group of people being the victim of an attack like this. So, I mean, you've seen the way we operate. We have a single event like this, we ramp up an investigation centre. This is a significant matter, and you know, we're in the business of trying to stop people getting hurt. So.
Can I just...
Okay, last one.
Yeah. Does the group name or gang name of 34 mean anything? Is that of any significance?
No, doesn't mean anything to me, but I am looking at the fact of what have we got here. We do see from time to time groups of people come together and they will assign a name to themselves. Just as an aside, we had a group of young people up in the northern part of Brisbane. We started to see social media about this group, and we went really hard in terms of the engagement with them. That 5-point plan with the police co-responder and youth justice, they've gone hard on that. Some of those young people are still going to be rascals and get up to mischief, but I was really impressed with the way the police in Moreton, in Pine Rivers, and you know, the youth justice people got in on top of that. So it's very, very difficult to sort of say, oh, there's something on social media. And that's what I'm not going to quibble with you over. If you want to call it a gang, go for your life. But one of the things we're looking for is that enduring, that there's something that lives beyond particular individuals. But there's no doubt across Brisbane and South East Queensland, groups of people come together, they get up to mischief and they assign a name to themselves. We're alert to that. So, okay, folks, have a great day.
Thank you.